An identical symbol appears in an ancient Egyptian tomb and a Mayan temple an ocean away. This is the mystery of cross-cultural codes, recurring patterns found in civilizations separated by vast distances and time. We will trace these enigmatic threads across continents and millennia, from the universal spiral to the sacred swastika. By the end, your entire perception of ancient human history will be transformed. How did these symbols travel, or were they born from the same human mind? What hidden dialogue were our ancestors having in stone and myth? What does this say about the story we think we know? That feeling of recognition in a place you have never been is a profound human experience. Picture a lone traveler far from home who suddenly hears a melody from their childhood, a nursery rhyme hummed in a language they do not understand. The shock is not just one of familiarity, but of connection. This is the precise feeling that grips researchers when they uncover a cross-cultural symbol. These are visual, conceptual, or structural motifs that appear independently in societies separated by vast oceans and thousands of years. Anthropologists sometimes call them archetypes, or memes of the mind, patterns that transcend the boundaries of any single culture. They are far more than simple coincidences. For many, they are potential keys to unlocking a grander mystery, perhaps revealing a shared human cognitive framework hardwired into our species. For others, they are tantalizing fragments of a forgotten global civilization, a single source from which these ideas spread. Consider the powerful image of a colossal serpent or dragon believed to support the world itself. This creature slithers through the myths of Mesoamerica, coils around the sacred trees of Norse legend, and soars through the cosmologies of East Asia. How could such a specific and powerful concept emerge spontaneously across the globe? It suggests our ancestors, in their separate corners of the world, were all dipping their cups into the same deep well of subconscious inspiration. To understand this phenomenon, we must now turn our gaze to the most compelling of these universal symbols, starting with one of the most ancient and pervasive patterns known to humanity. That perfect curve held in your hand or spinning in the void of space is more than just a shape. It is a silent language spoken across millennia. The spiral is one of humanity's first and most persistent symbols, scratched onto stone, painted on pottery, and carved into the very landscape. In the deep darkness of Newgrange in Ireland, a tomb older than the pyramids, spirals coil around entrance stones, perhaps mapping a soul's journey into the next life. On the other side of the world, the ancestral rock art of Aboriginal Australians tells creation stories with the same winding forms. And in the vibrant palaces of the Minoans on Crete, spirals dance across frescoes and pottery, a celebration of life's unending rhythm. Mythologists like Joseph Campbell argued this was no mere decoration. The spiral, he believed, was a universal code for the journey itself, for growth, and for the unseen cosmic energy that animates all things. Its independent emergence points to something hardwired within us, a fundamental recognition of the cycles that govern existence. We see it in the unfurling of a fern, in the whirlpool of a draining sink, in the vast arms of a hurricane. Why would a culture in ancient Ireland and a culture in the Australian outback, with zero possibility of contact, both pick this specific, elegant form to represent life, death, and rebirth? It seems our ancestors everywhere were looking at the same natural world and reading the same instructions, written in the very fabric of reality. But if the spiral represents a quiet, universally understood truth, our next symbol tells a much louder and more turbulent story. Yet the spiral's gentle curve of cosmic energy finds a stark counterpart in the stark geometry of another, far more complex symbol. A simple equilateral cross with its arms bent at right angles appears with stunning frequency across the ancient world. In the sacred rituals of the Navajo people, it is the whirling log, a symbol of healing and spiritual movement traced in colored sands. Half a world away, the same form is carved into the stone of ancient Hindu temples, a sacred mark known as the Swastika, representing the sun, good fortune, and the eternal cycle of life. For thousands of years, this was not an emblem of hate but a universal signal of well-being, found in Baltic folk art, on Greek pottery, and in Native American traditions. Its presence in so many unconnected cultures presents one of history's most challenging puzzles. How could a symbol of peace and prosperity, revered for millennia, be so violently twisted into a global signal of hatred and destruction in a mere handful of decades? This shocking transformation forces us to confront a difficult truth, that a symbol's power lies not in its form, but in the meaning we pour into it. The same shape can represent life or death, blessing or curse, depending entirely on the hands that wield it. This profound duality in human interpretation becomes even more tangible when we move from symbols painted on pottery to the very stones our ancestors used to build their world. That same powerful urge to build towards the heavens finds its ultimate expression in the most imposing of all cross-cultural codes, the pyramid itself. This geometric form rises from the deserts of Egypt, pierces the jungles of Guatemala, and punctuates the plains of Mesopotamia with a consistency that defies simple explanation. Think of the sheer, staggering human effort required to build the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico, and then, an ocean away and centuries apart, the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. These are monuments of unimaginable scale, conceived and constructed by cultures that should have known nothing of one another. Their functions were indeed different, one a tomb for a god-king, the other a temple and cosmic centerpiece. Yet both civilizations and many others arrived at that same stable, ascending triangular structure. Why this specific shape? Archaeologists and historians have long debated this very question. Was it a shared, intuitive understanding of sacred geometry, a recognition that the pyramid's form channeled spiritual energy from the earth to the sky? Or was it simply the most practical and durable solution humanity had yet discovered for building tall, lasting structures, a triumph of engineering necessity over artistic whimsy? The answer likely lies somewhere in between, a fusion of the pragmatic and the profound. This architectural echo is so loud, so undeniable, that it forces us to wonder. If the very shape of our grandest monuments was being replicated across the globe, what other, more subtle symbols and ideas were also being silently shared through the collective human mind? Perhaps the key to that mystery lies not in the monuments themselves, but in the stars they were so often built to observe. But the pyramid's silent geometry is not the only ancient structure built to bridge worlds. Deep within the human imagination grows a tree of impossible scale, its roots anchored in the underworld and its highest branches lost among the stars. This is the world tree, known to scholars as the Axis Mundi, a cosmic pillar connecting heaven, earth, and the realms below. In the frosty realms of Norse myth, it was Yggdrasil, an immense ash tree trembling with the fate of all worlds. Siberian shamans described a similar tree to climb on their spiritual journeys, moving between realities. And in the steamy jungles of the Maya, a great ceiba tree performed the same function, its roots in the dark underworld of Xibalba and its branches in the upper world of the gods. How is it that cultures from the Arctic to the equator all conceived of the universe in this strangely specific way, as a vertical structure symbolized by a tree? Comparative mythologists see this not as a shared story, but as a shared cognitive map. It is a fundamental human impulse to visualize our place in the cosmos, to create a central point of order amidst the chaos. The world tree is that anchor, a spiritual ladder that makes the universe navigable and meaningful. Its persistent, global presence points to a deep, intuitive understanding that reality is layered, that there are worlds within our world waiting to be explored. And coiled around the roots of this universal tree, in myth after myth, we almost always find a serpent. Coiled at the root of the world tree, in myth after myth, is a creature of profound duality, the serpent. And one of its most powerful and enduring images is that of a snake consuming its own tail. This is the Ouroboros, an ancient symbol of a cycle with no beginning and no end. It first appears clearly in the funerary texts of ancient Egypt, a protector encircling the world of the dead. Centuries later, the same perfect circle of scales and jaws surfaces in the pages of a Norse manuscript, and it becomes a central emblem for Gnostic philosophers, representing the unity of all things. The serpent itself, across the globe, holds this impossible dual nature. For the Aztecs, Quetzalcoatl was the feathered serpent, a god of wind and wisdom who gifted humanity with knowledge. In Hindu tradition, the Kundalini is a serpentine energy coiled at the base of the spine, a creative life force that awakens and rises through spiritual practice. Yet this same animal also embodies destruction and chaos, from the tempting serpent in the Garden of Eden to the world-ending monster Jormungandr of Norse myth. How did this one creature come to represent such opposing forces, life and death, across so many unconnected cultures? The answer may lie not in shared stories, but in shared observations. Any human, anywhere, watching a snake shed its skin, would witness a powerful, natural metaphor for rebirth and renewal. The creature literally emerges anew, leaving its old self behind. This universal biological spectacle, witnessed independently from the Americas to Asia, provided a ready-made symbol for the cycles of eternity, for death and resurrection written into the living world. This deep cross-cultural focus on cyclical renewal, on the endless consumption and regeneration of life, points our inquiry toward another symbol, one that represents the very essence of that life-giving force itself. From the murky water, the lotus flower rises in perfect, unsullied beauty. This single image of a blossom born from mud and decay to float pristine upon the surface captivated the ancient human imagination in lands thousands of miles apart. In the sun-baked theology of Egypt, the lotus was nothing less than a miniature sun god. Each night, its flower closed and sank beneath the water, and each morning it re-emerged reborn to open its petals to the sky. It was a direct symbol of the sun's own daily resurrection and of life's triumph over the chaos of the primordial waters. Entirely separate in the philosophical traditions of India, the lotus took on an equally profound meaning. In Buddhism and Hinduism, the flower became the ultimate emblem of non-attachment and spiritual awakening. Just as the lotus remains untouched by the mud from which it grows, so too can the human spirit rise above the suffering and attachments of the material world to achieve enlightenment. A Buddha or a Hindu deity is often depicted seated serenely upon a lotus throne, a living testament to this transcendent ideal. How could the same exact metaphor for purity emerging from filth arise independently along the Nile and the Ganges? It speaks to a universal human longing, a shared observation that the most profound beauty is often forged in struggle. The lotus is a silent promise, repeated across cultures, that our own base origins and turbulent experiences do not define our ultimate potential. This elegant symbol of balanced opposition, of light born from darkness, finds a more dynamic and active expression in another ancient pattern that governs the very rhythm of existence. That elegant dance of opposites finds its most concise and beautiful expression in the ancient Chinese symbol of yin and yang. While this specific circular diagram is culturally unique, the profound truth it represents is astonishingly universal. It is the understanding that our reality is woven from complementary dualities, light and dark, male and female, order and chaos, and that these forces are not locked in simple battle, but exist in a dynamic, interdependent balance. One cannot exist without the other, for each gives the other its very meaning. This fundamental concept appears as a philosophical cornerstone in civilizations that never knew one another. In ancient Persia, the Zoroastrian faith was built upon the cosmic struggle between Ahura Mazda, the god of light and order, and Angra Mainyu, the spirit of darkness and destruction. Across the ocean, the Cherokee people understood the world through a similar tension between order, represented by the right-handed twin, and disorder, embodied by the left-handed twin. This pattern of binary opposition is not a coincidence, it is a cognitive tool. Our human minds seem hardwired to make sense of a complex and often overwhelming universe by sorting it into pairs of opposites. It is a foundational mental model, a way to create structure from chaos, appearing in creation myths and philosophical systems from every corner of the globe. This universal recognition of balanced, opposing forces reveals a deep, shared intuition about the very fabric of existence. And if our ancestors everywhere were mapping the cosmos with the same philosophical tools, it stands to reason they would also be counting it with the same sacred numbers. This mathematical harmony, this silent language of ratios and shapes, points toward a concept far grander than any single culture. It suggests that the universe itself might be built upon a foundation of geometric principles, a kind of sacred architecture that our ancestors somehow perceived. This is the compelling idea behind sacred geometry, the belief that certain mathematical ratios and forms are not human inventions, but fundamental constants woven into the fabric of reality. These patterns repeat from the microscopic to the cosmic scale, acting as a universal code that ancient builders and artists tapped into, often completely independently. Consider the Fibonacci sequence, a simple series of numbers where each new number is the sum of the two before it. This progression creates a spiral that governs the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower's head, the curve of a nautilus shell, and the branching of trees. Now look at the Parthenon in ancient Greece. The proportions of its facade, the very relationship between its width and height, align almost perfectly with this same natural sequence. How could a mathematical law observed in a flower's growth also dictate the dimensions of a human-made temple, unless both were following the same underlying blueprint? Then there is the golden ratio, often called phi, a specific proportion of roughly 1.618 to 1. This ratio is celebrated for its unique aesthetic appeal, creating a sense of perfect natural balance. We find it meticulously employed in Renaissance paintings like the Mona Lisa, and astonishingly, it is encoded in the very dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Proponents of sacred geometry argue that these are not happy accidents, but evidence of a deep, non-verbal connection to the natural world. It is as if ancient cultures, separated by continents, were all tuning their creations to the same fundamental frequency of the cosmos. This shared resonance, this universal grammar of shape and number, implies that our ancestors were not just building structures, they were translating the hidden order of the universe into stone and art. And if they were all looking at the same cosmic blueprint on Earth, it stands to reason their gaze would also be drawn upward, to the same luminous bodies moving in the night sky. That shared gaze into the sacred geometry of the cosmos inevitably rises to meet its most brilliant source. High above every civilization, a single, life-giving star commanded universal reverence. The sun was not merely a light in the sky, it was a god, a king, the ultimate architect of order in a chaotic world. In the scorching deserts of Egypt, the winged sun disk of Horus soared across temple walls, a symbol of divine protection and royal power that stretched from the pharaoh's throne to the horizon. An ocean away, the Aztecs carved their own profound understanding into the massive sunstone, a complex calendar and cosmology centered entirely around the radiant deity Tanatia, who demanded sustenance to continue his daily journey. This veneration manifested in spectacular, yet eerily similar, rituals. During the Inti Raymi festival, the Inca emperor would lead ceremonies pleading with the sun god Inti not to abandon his people during the coming winter. In the mythology of ancient Greece, Helios drove his chariot of fire across the sky each day, a celestial performance celebrated in poetry and art. The core of this global worship was a shared, undeniable biological truth. Every human in every culture understood on a visceral level that without the sun, there were no crops, no warmth, no life. Its daily cycle of disappearance and return made it the most powerful natural metaphor for death and resurrection, a concept that gave hope to every agricultural society that the long, cold night would always be followed by a new dawn. This independent, global emergence of solar cults is perhaps the clearest cross-cultural code of all, a testament to a shared human dependency written in the very light that bathed our ancestors' faces. And just as the day gives way to the night, this universal focus on the sun finds its necessary balance in the quiet, mysterious glow of its celestial partner. But where the sun offers brilliant constancy, the moon presents a face of perpetual change. Its cool, silvery light governs the realm of intuition, tides, and the deep, mysterious rhythms of time itself. In the star-charted skies of ancient Mesopotamia, the moon was not a gentle goddess but the powerful god Sin, a wise and bearded deity whose crescent crown became a symbol of divine authority. Across the world, in Chinese legend, the luminous goddess Chang resides in a cold palace on the moon, an eternal figure of beauty and loneliness. And in the lush Mayan world, Ixchel, the jaguar goddess of the moon, held dominion over medicine, childbirth, and weaving. This consistent feminine association is no accident. The moon's 28-day cycle mirrored the most intimate biological rhythms known to early human societies, the menstrual cycle and the very timing of new life. Its predictable waxing and waning provided humanity's first reliable calendar, a celestial clock that told farmers when to plant and when to harvest, and told priestesses when to perform their most sacred rites. Every human looking up at that shifting sliver of light in the darkness was participating in the same universal experience, reading the same celestial instructions for survival. This shared, silent observation of the lunar cycle created a foundational layer of symbolic language, a common code of feminine power, cyclical time, and hidden knowledge that our ancestors, from the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of Central America, all understood without ever having to speak a single word to one another. The same hand that shaped a stone tool also left its mark on a cave wall, a universal signature of presence. Long before the written word, our ancestors pressed their palms against rock surfaces, blowing pigment around them to create a stencil, a ghostly echo of an individual from tens of thousands of years ago. These handprints in European caves like El Castillo are not just art, they are a primal declaration, I was here. This powerful impulse to use the hand as a symbol did not fade with the Paleolithic era, it evolved and refined itself across the globe. In the Middle East and North Africa, the Hamsa hand emerged as a potent talisman against evil, an eye set in the palm to reflect back malicious intent. Entirely separate in the spiritual traditions of India and Southeast Asia, the Buddha is almost always depicted with his hand raised in the Abhaya Mudra, a specific gesture where the palm faces outward, meaning have no fear. Here, the hand is not a ward against danger, but a direct channel for divine reassurance and peace. How is it that the same simple image of a human hand could independently come to represent both fierce protection and gentle blessing? The answer seems to lie in our very biology. The hand is our primary interface with reality. We use it to create and to destroy, to comfort and to push away. Every culture, observing this same truth, naturally elevated the hand into a symbol of human agency itself, a representation of our power to shape our world and our spiritual destiny. This profound focus on a feature so universal to our species forces a deeper question. If something as concrete as the human hand spawned near-identical symbols worldwide, could the same be true for something as vast and abstract as a shared memory, like a world-altering flood? The human hand may declare our presence, but a shared, terrifying memory of its erasure echoes across every continent. Nearly every major culture on Earth tells the same story of a catastrophic, world-engulfing flood. In ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh describes a great deluge sent by angry gods, with a hero named Utnapishtim building a boat to save his family and the seeds of all living things. This narrative is mirrored almost exactly in the biblical story of Noah and his ark. Across the Mediterranean, the Greeks told of Deucalion, who survived a flood sent by Zeus and repopulated the earth by casting stones behind him, which sprang up as new people. In Hindu tradition, the sage Manu is warned by a fish about an impending flood and builds a ship to preserve life. These are not isolated tales, they are a global chorus describing the same unimaginable event. How could such a specific and terrifying narrative arise independently from the Middle East to the Americas? Geologists propose a compelling answer. As the last ice age ended around 10,000 years ago, colossal ice sheets melted, causing global sea levels to rise by hundreds of feet, slowly but inexorably drowning coastlines and entire landmasses that were once home to human populations. These were not sudden, single events, but a creeping, unstoppable disaster that would have been witnessed over generations, a traumatic memory seared into the collective human psyche. The flood myth, therefore, may be far more than a simple legend. It could be our species' oldest and most widespread piece of history, a shared inheritance of a real, planet-altering catastrophe. This universal story then became a powerful symbolic vessel, a way for every culture to process the trauma of environmental chaos. The narrative always follows a similar arc, a cycle of divine judgment, utter destruction, and then a hard-won rebirth. The slate is wiped clean by the terrifying power of water, but from those waters, a single survivor emerges to begin the world anew. This pattern of purification and renewal connects directly to the spiritual symbolism of the lotus and the serpent, showing how our ancestors used powerful, recurring stories to make sense of a volatile world and find hope in the face of absolute loss. If a shared memory of water could unite humanity's past, what other unifying threads might be woven into the very fabric of our consciousness, waiting to be decoded? That universal memory of a cleansing flood gives way to a more personal and profound mystery, the final journey we all must take. Across the ancient world, death was rarely seen as a simple end, but as a perilous voyage to another shore. And for this ultimate transition, humanity repeatedly chose the same vessel, a boat to carry the soul into the unknown. In the dark corridors of Egyptian tombs, paintings depict the solar bark, a magnificent ship carrying the dead sun god, Ra, through the 12 perilous hours of the underworld each night. This was not just a myth for a deity, it was the template for every pharaoh's own journey, a belief that they too would sail through the dangers of the afterlife to be reborn with the dawn. An ocean and a millennium away, the Vikings sent their most honored chieftains to the Hall of Valhalla in a similarly powerful way. They buried their heroes within entire ships, surrounded by weapons and treasure, the vessel itself serving as a physical conduit to carry them on their final, glorious voyage across the seas of death. Even in the shadowy Greek underworld, the dead were not expected to swim the dark river Styx. They needed a ferry. The grim boatman Charon demanded a coin for passage, a small price for the journey from the world of the living to the silent realm of Hades. Why did cultures surrounded by deserts like Egypt and cultures born of the forest like the Norse both envision the afterlife as a journey by water? The answer flows from a universal human experience. Rivers and oceans were the ultimate boundaries in the ancient world, separating tribes, kingdoms, and continents. To cross a body of water was to leave the familiar behind and enter the truly unknown. It was the most powerful natural metaphor our ancestors possessed for the ultimate transition from life to whatever lay beyond. The boat, then, became the only logical vehicle for such a passage, a fragile shell of hope navigating the great barrier between worlds. And just as a sailor on our world would navigate by the stars, these spiritual voyages too were guided by celestial maps, by constellations that appeared in the night skies above every civilization, telling the same stories of gods and heroes to guide the dead home. That same celestial map that guided spiritual boats across the river of death was also a canvas for humanity's oldest stories. Gazing up at the Inkai vastness, our ancestors did not see a random scattering of lights, they saw familiar shapes etched in fire. The human mind, a pattern-seeking engine, instinctively connected the brightest stars into constellations, a practice that emerged independently across the globe with a startling consistency. The brilliant belt and sword we recognize as Orion was, to the ancient Greeks, a mighty hunter pursuing the Pleiades across the heavens. Yet along the Nile, the very same stars outline the god Osiris, the lord of the afterlife, resurrected and immortalized in the night sky. On the other side of the planet, Aboriginal Australian cultures looked up and saw not a man, but 3 young men sitting around a celestial campfire, a trio of glowing hearthstones. How could the same pinpricks of light inspire a hunter, a god, and a cooking fire? The answer lies in a shared cognitive process. Certain star groupings are simply the most prominent features in the celestial landscape, their patterns so bold and distinctive that any human, anywhere, would naturally pick them out. But the stories we pour into them, the myths we weave around them, are shaped by the world at our feet. A seafaring culture might see a great ship, while an agricultural society sees a plow. This universal trait of celestial storytelling extends beyond human figures. The tight, glittering cluster of the Pleiades held profound significance for 2 cultures that could not have been more separate. For the ancient Greeks, these were the 7 daughters of the Titan Atlas, a tragic tale of pursuit and transformation. For the Maori of New Zealand, the same cluster, known as Matariki, marked the start of the new year, its heliacal rising signaling the time to plant crops. Both civilizations, entirely independently, recognized this distinctive smudge of light as a critical celestial clock, intimately tying its appearance to their survival and their sense of time. This independent pattern recognition in the cosmos reveals something fundamental, that our ancestors were not just observing the stars, they were in constant dialogue with them, projecting their fears, their heroes, and their practical needs onto the heavens, creating a shared library of myth written in a language of light that every culture could read. This ultimate predator of the human psyche wears many faces across the world. In the misty highlands of Europe, the dragon is a malevolent beast, a winged serpent hoarding gold in a mountain lair, a creature to be slain by a hero's lance. Yet travel to the rivers of China, and the dragon transforms into a benevolent serpentine spirit, a symbol of imperial authority and the life-giving rains that ensure a bountiful harvest. It coils around pillars and dances in festivals, a creature of wisdom and celestial power. Then there is the feathered serpent of Mesoamerica, known as Quetzalcoatl to the Aztecs and Cuculcan to the Maya, a god who bridged the earth and sky, bringing wind, wisdom, and the very calendar itself to humanity. How can one archetype embody such opposing roles, from a villainous hoarder to a divine civilizer? The answer may lie in its composite nature. The dragon is not a single animal, but a terrifying and magnificent fusion of the world's most formidable predators. It possesses the sinuous, deadly body of a great serpent, the soaring wings and talons of a raptor, and sometimes the powerful limbs and fearsome jaws of a great cat. This amalgamation suggests a deep, subconscious process at work. Our ancestors, living in a world filled with very real and separate dangers, may have psychologically combined their most potent fears into one ultimate, supernatural embodiment of nature's untamable power. Whether worshipped as a god or feared as a monster, the dragon consistently represents a force far beyond human control, an ancient, primal energy that must be either appeased or conquered. This global creation of a composite beast points to a shared mental blueprint for the ultimate creature, a psychological response to a world where the boundaries between the known and the unknown were terrifyingly thin. These silent stone giants stand guard across the globe, monuments to a forgotten age of engineering and cosmic observation. Beyond the famous pyramids, the world is dotted with megalithic mysteries, colossal stone circles, and alignments whose true purpose continues to elude us. Think of the sheer, brooding presence of Stonehenge on the English plain, its massive lintels perched atop towering sarcens, framing the rising sun on the summer solstice. Then cast your mind to the remote isolation of Easter Island, where the immense Moai statues gaze with stoic, inscrutable expressions across the vast Pacific, their backs to the sea. What could these two places, separated by an entire planet, possibly have in common? The connection lies not in their form, but in their function. Both of these sites, and countless others like them, are meticulously aligned with the heavens. The builders of Stonehenge tracked the sun's journey with breathtaking accuracy, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. On the other side of the world, the ancient Polynesian navigators who erected the Moai were master astronomers themselves, using the stars to conquer the world's largest ocean. How did cultures at the literal ends of the earth independently develop such a complex and precise understanding of celestial mechanics? It is as if the same seed of astronomical science sprouted in completely separate soils. This global phenomenon forces a startling consideration. Could these structures be the legacy of a single, long-vanished source of knowledge, a primordial civilization whose teachings slowly diffused across the continents? Or does their independent construction reveal something even more profound about humanity itself, an innate, hardwired drive to measure the cosmos and mark our place within its grand cycles? This architectural precision, replicated from Britain to Polynesia, makes one wonder if a system of universal measurement was also in play, a shared geometric language written in stone and aligned with the stars, waiting for us to finally decipher its ancient code. This same impulse to measure the cosmos with stone might have required a universal ruler. Across hundreds of Neolithic sites, from the Scottish Islands to the French coast, a mysterious consistency emerges in the dimensions of stone circles. After surveying these monuments for decades, an engineer named Alexander Thom proposed a radical theory that their builders all used the same unit of measurement. He called it the megalithic yard, a length of roughly 2.72 of our modern feet. If he was correct, it means a builder in what is now Wales and a builder in what is now Brittany were using the same invisible ruler, laying out their cosmic temples with an identical standard of measure centuries before formal trade routes could have spread such a concept. The idea remains fiercely debated among archaeologists, with many questioning the statistical evidence. Yet the controversy itself points to a deeper, more fascinating possibility. Could these ancient engineers have independently discovered the same fundamental ratios, perhaps by using the pendulum of a star's motion or the proportions of the human body itself? The cubit of ancient Egypt was famously based on the length of the pharaoh's forearm. This pursuit of a standardized, repeatable order is a hallmark of civilization itself, a universal human need to bring consistency to a chaotic world. The creation of measurement was as profound an invention as the creation of symbolic written languages. It was a way to translate the abstract into the tangible, to build a shared reality that everyone could understand and use. This drive to quantify the world, to find common ground in numbers and ratios, suggests our ancestors were not just building in isolation, but were all tapping into the same deep-seated cognitive need for order, a need that would soon find its voice in the most powerful cross-cultural code of all, the symbol that could speak. The silent stones that measured the world could not yet tell its stories. That final, revolutionary leap would require a new kind of code, one that could capture not just the cycles of the stars, but the very count of grain and the names of gods. Long before the first word was ever written, humanity was experimenting with a global prototype for writing itself. In the Fertile Crescent of Mesopotamia, around 7,000 years ago, people began using small, baked clay tokens of different shapes. A cone might represent a small measure of grain, a sphere a larger basketful, and a cylinder a single sheep. These were not abstract art, they were the world's first filing system, a three-dimensional language of commerce and control stored in clay envelopes. At the very same time, thousands of miles to the west in the Balkans, the Vinca culture was incising a different set of symbols onto their pottery and figurines. We find recurring marks like chevrons, crosses, and branching lines, etched with a consistency that suggests a shared understanding. These are not a written language we can read, but they are undeniably a symbolic notation. How is it that two cultures with no conceivable contact both arrived at the use of linear marks and geometric shapes to encode information? The answer lies in a universal cognitive threshold being crossed. This was the dawn of abstract representation, the moment the human mind learned to divorce a symbol from the object it represented. A chevron no longer had to be a bird in flight. It could mean increase or danger or the number 2. This was a mental revolution as profound as the discovery of fire. It allowed for the recording of quantities, the marking of ownership, and perhaps even the first clumsy attempts to pin down the oral myths that had been passed down for generations. The very symbols we have been tracing, the spirals and the crosses, were likely among the first to be wrestled from the world of pure image into the world of structured meaning. This independent emergence of proto-writing across the globe is the ultimate evidence that our ancestors' minds were all traveling the same path, building the same cognitive tools to grasp an increasingly complex world, and preparing the clay tablets upon which the full story of history would one day be written. The same clay tablets that recorded harvests and debts could never capture the deeper rhythms of the human heart, that required a different kind of language, one spoken in the very structure of our oldest stories. Scholar Joseph Campbell called this the monomyth, a single heroic story echoed in every corner of the globe. It is the tale of a humble figure, like a young King Arthur who cannot yet pull the sword from the stone, who receives a call to adventure they often try to refuse. They are then thrust into an unknown world, a road of trials where they face dragons, tricksters, and their own deepest fears. Think of Odysseus battling monsters and gods for 10 long years on his journey home. Or the Buddha leaving his life of luxury to confront the suffering of the world beneath the Bodhi tree. After their ordeal, the hero must return across the final threshold, bringing back an elixir, a boon, or a hard-won wisdom to heal their community. This is not merely a plot, it is a psychological map. Why would a Greek epic, a Celtic legend, and the spiritual biography of an Indian prince all follow the same invisible blueprint? The answer lies not in shared libraries, but in shared life. Every human, regardless of their culture, goes through their own version of this journey. We all face a call to leave the comfort of what we know. We all endure trials that test our character, and we all hope to return from those struggles with something valuable, a lesson that makes our suffering meaningful. The hero's journey is the story of growing up, of facing mortality, of leaving home and finding your way back transformed. It is a cross-cultural code written not in stone, but in the universal script of the human soul, a fundamental pattern for how we understand and narrate our own transformation. This journey of the hero is not a story we learn, but one we remember from a place deep within. Carl Jung, a pioneer of psychology, called this hidden reservoir the collective unconscious, a psychic inheritance shared by all humanity. He proposed that beneath our personal memories and experiences lies a universal layer of the mind, teeming with innate blueprints he called archetypes. These are not specific images, but fundamental patterns of being that shape how we perceive the world. The nurturing mother, the chaotic trickster, the guiding wise old man, the elusive shadow self, these are not just characters in a fairy tale. They are psychic constants, appearing in the myths of the Inuit, the folktales of West Africa, and the dream literature of ancient China. When a culture independently conjures a figure like the trickster coyote in Native American lore and the mischievous Loki of the Norse, they are not copying each other, they are tuning into the same primordial frequency of the human psyche. Jung saw these archetypes as the architects of our most powerful symbols. He was particularly fascinated by the mandala, a Sanskrit word for circle. Across traditions, from Tibetan Buddhist sand paintings to the rose windows of Gothic cathedrals, we find this same structure, a circle organized within a square or containing a central point. For Jung, this was not mere decoration. The mandala is a universal symbol of the self, a psychological map for achieving wholeness and integration. It represents the human urge to center ourselves, to bring order to the chaos of our inner world, and to find balance between opposing forces. This psychological lens offers a profound answer to our central mystery. If the same symbols and stories arise everywhere, it may be because they were never invented out there in the world, but are instead projected from in here, from the shared depths of the mind. We are all born with the same internal cast of characters and the same symbolic tools for growth. So when an artist in India paints a mandala and a monk in Tibet creates one, they are both giving form to the same innate human drive for spiritual completion, a silent conversation happening not across continents, but across the universal landscape of the soul. Yet the symbols we find carved into separate continents present a profound intellectual riddle. How do we explain these uncanny parallels? The academic world has long been split between two competing explanations, a great debate that strikes at the very heart of how we understand human history. On one side sits the theory of diffusionism, the idea that cultural concepts, including symbols, were borrowed and spread through ancient, often unknown, contact between civilizations. Proponents of this view ask us to reconsider the capabilities of our ancestors. Adventurers like Thor Heyerdahl famously built the Kon-Tiki, a primitive balsa wood raft, and sailed it from South America to the Polynesian islands to demonstrate that such trans-oceanic contact was not just possible but probable. His dramatic voyage proved that the vast Pacific was not an impenetrable barrier, but a potential highway for the exchange of ideas, and there is solid evidence for this in some cases. The humble sweet potato, a crop native to the Americas, was found growing across Polynesia long before European explorers arrived, a silent testament to some form of prehistoric cultural exchange. But can we explain every parallel with a boat? The other side of the debate, known as independent invention, argues that we cannot. This school of thought suggests that similar environments and the universal wiring of the human brain naturally lead to similar solutions and symbols. After all, if you give two isolated groups of humans the same problem, like building a stable, monumental structure, they may both independently arrive at the pyramid as the most logical form. If they both observe the same life-giving sun and the same mysterious moon, they may both develop solar deities and lunar goddesses. This view sees the human mind as a constant, a creative engine that, when faced with comparable challenges, will produce comparable creations. The danger lies in stretching diffusionism too far into the realm of hyper-diffusionism, a controversial idea that posits a single, lost-source civilization, like the mythical Atlantis, as the origin point for all major human innovation. This theory often dismisses the ingenuity of indigenous cultures, implying they could not have invented their own gods or their own architecture without an outside, superior teacher. The truth, as it often does, likely lies in a complex tapestry woven from both threads. Some symbols were indeed carried on the currents of trade and migration, while others sprang forth independently from the same deep well of human consciousness. This unresolved debate forces us to hold two powerful ideas in our minds at once: that our ancestors were both intrepid global explorers and profoundly local geniuses, all speaking a silent, symbolic language that we are only just beginning to understand. That unresolved debate between diffusion and invention leaves a tantalizing void, a space easily filled by one of history's most enduring legends. The story of Atlantis, first recounted by the Greek philosopher Plato over 2,000 years ago, describes a powerful and sophisticated island kingdom that sank beneath the ocean in a single day and night of misfortune. For centuries, this tale has been proposed as the ultimate answer to our puzzle, a single, lost source for all the cross-cultural codes we have traced. The hypothesis is powerfully alluring. Imagine a single, advanced seafaring civilization, a global teacher navigating the ancient world, planting the seeds of pyramid building, solar worship, and sacred geometry on distant shores before their entire world vanished beneath the waves. This lost culture would be the primordial mother, the common ancestor from which all these shared symbols flowed. It is a compellingly neat and dramatic solution to a messy, complex historical mystery. Yet despite countless expeditions and theories, not a single piece of verified archaeological evidence has ever been found to prove Atlantis existed outside of Plato's philosophical allegory. So why does the idea hold such a powerful grip on our imagination? Its persistence speaks to a deep, human longing for a golden age, a time when a wiser, more unified people understood the secrets of the universe. The Atlantis myth offers a comforting simplicity, a single point of origin for humanity's greatest achievements, sparing us the more complicated truth of countless cultures independently struggling toward enlightenment. This allure continues to shape modern interpretations, from speculative histories to blockbuster films, proving that the dream of a lost world can be just as powerful as any symbol carved in stone. That same symbolic language of the collective unconscious did not vanish with the ancient world. It simply found a new medium. The very archetypes we find carved in stone and painted on temple walls are now meticulously designed into the corporate logos that surround us every day. Consider the Apple logo, a single, bitten fruit. It is a direct, if unintentional, echo of the fruit from the tree of knowledge, a universal symbol of enlightenment, discovery, and a fundamental shift in human consciousness. Then there is the Mercedes-Benz emblem, a three-pointed star within a circle. This is a sleek, modern simplification of a classic solar symbol, representing power, prestige, and a kind of mechanical divinity radiating outward. Even the Twitter bird, a creature in flight, functions as a contemporary version of the universal messenger, carrying information across the globe at the speed of thought. These corporations do not choose these forms by accident. Through extensive market research and psychological testing, they have learned to tap into the deep, pre-existing associations buried within the human psyche. They are not inventing new symbols, they are renting space in our oldest mental architecture. This modern application proves that cross-cultural codes are far more than historical curiosities. They are a living, breathing language of the subconscious, a silent vocabulary used to communicate core values and identity in an instant. A startup does not need to explain its name if its logo is a stylized ship sailing forward. We intuitively understand it represents journey, discovery, and commerce. This is the enduring power of these patterns. They bypass our conscious, critical minds and speak directly to the ancient parts of us that still understand the world in myths and symbols. The same spiral that promised rebirth in a Neolithic tomb now draws our eye to a tech company promising innovation. The debate over whether these symbols spread or were born independently becomes almost irrelevant when we see them actively at work today, proving that the most powerful human codes are not stored in libraries, but etched into the very blueprint of how we think. These recurring patterns are more than historical echoes. They are a mirror reflecting the very structure of the human mind. The global recurrence of the spiral, the hero, and the world tree strongly suggests that our consciousness is not a blank slate. Instead, it comes preloaded with a shared symbolic filter, a set of fundamental structures through which we all process the chaos of existence into meaningful patterns. When a child in ancient Egypt and a child in ancient China both instinctively look at the stars and connect them into a hunter or a boat, they are demonstrating this innate cognitive wiring. Our brains, regardless of the language we speak or the gods we worship, seem compelled to organize reality using the same archetypal tools. This points to a profound unity that underlies humanity's beautiful and apparent diversity. The independent invention of the pyramid or the flood myth is not evidence of forgotten contact, but of a shared psychological and biological inheritance. We all have the same physical form, we all witness the same sun and moon, we all experience birth, love, fear, and death. From this common ground, the same symbolic forms naturally blossom. The hero's journey is the story of every individual's growth. The world tree is our collective attempt to map our place in a layered cosmos. The spiral is our intuitive understanding of cyclical time. This means the countless myths and symbols we have explored are not separate creations, but countless variations on a single, vast, and ongoing human story. We are not isolated cultures shouting into the void, but a global chorus, each singing the same ancient songs in our own unique and dazzling dialects, all interpreting the same universal truths through the prism of our local landscapes and histories. Our journey through these cross-cultural codes reveals a tapestry of human thought far more interconnected than we ever imagined. From the universal spiral to the sacred swastika, from the monumental pyramid to the cosmic world tree, we have witnessed civilizations separated by oceans and millennia arriving at nearly identical symbolic solutions. This pattern presents a fundamental challenge to the traditional, isolated narrative of human history. Whether explained by a shared psychological inheritance, fleeting ancient contact across vast distances, or a deep resonance with the mathematical principles that structure our universe, these recurring forms cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence. They whisper a different story, one of a common cognitive heritage that unites all of humanity beneath its beautiful and diverse cultural expressions. This exploration is not an end but a starting point for your own curiosity. What other hidden connections might you now begin to see in the world's art, architecture, and mythology? We would love to hear your thoughts on the most compelling cross-cultural symbol in the comments below. And if you are eager to continue unraveling history's greatest mysteries with us, be sure to subscribe.